Hello students, today we will study about levels of structural organization. The number of cells in the body varies with different organisms. In some lower forms of life, example Euglena, amoeba, the body is formed of a single cell. These organisms are described as unicellular. In a unicellular organism, all life activities are carried out by itself with its internal structures. The internal structures are called organelles. In the vast majority of plants and animals, the body is made up of numerous cells. They are called multicellular organisms. A multicellular organism is actually an aggregation of cells. Here, a group of cells functions in a same way to form a tissue or an organ. Example like xylem vessels, cork cells, cells in the skin like this. Multicellular organisms have a great capacity to survive than unicellular organisms. Let's know about unicellular organism in brief. An unicellular organism, also known as a single-celled organism, is an organism that consists of only one cell. Historically, the simple single-celled organisms have sometimes been referred to as a monads, especially the unicellular flagellates. The main groups of unicellular organisms are bacteria, archaea, protozoa, unicellular algae, and unicellular fungi. Unicellular organisms fall into two general categories: prokaryotic organisms and eukaryotic organisms. Unicellular organisms are thought to be oldest form of life, with early protocells possibly emerging 3.8 to 4 billion years ago. Prokaryotes, most protista, and some fungi are unicellular, although some of these organisms live in colonies. They don't exhibit specialization. These organisms have together and each cell in the colony is the same. However, each individual cell must carry out all life processes to survive. In contrast, even the simplest multicellular organisms have cells that depend on each other to survive. Most multicellular organisms have a unicellular life cycle stage. Gametes, for example, are reproductive unicells for multicellular organisms. Additionally, multicellularity appears to have evolved independently many times in the history of life. Some organisms are partially uni and multicellular, like Dictyostelium, Discordium. Additionally, unicellular organisms can be multinucleate, like Myxogastria and Plasmodium. Candidatus magnetoglobus multicellular, related to Delta proteobacteria, is a multicellular prokaryote. It is neither unicellular nor a colony. Now let's know about colonial organism. Let's know about colonial organism. What do we mean by colonial organisms? Details we'll study. A colonial organism is a collection of one-celled organisms living together. Colonial behavior is quite unique to microbes and it helps in coordination, protection, and communication. Integration of cooperative and communicative interactions are seems to be extremely important to microbes. The most common cooperative interactions seen in microbial systems are mutualism and altruism. The one way that microbes communicate and organize with each other in order to partake in more advanced cooperative interactions is through quorum sensing. Quorum sensing describes the phenomenon in which the accumulation of signaling molecules in the surrounding environment enables a single cell to assess the number of individuals so that the population as a whole can make a coordinated response. This interaction is fairly common among bacterial taxa and involves the secretion of individual cells of signaling molecules. In many situations, the cost bacterial cells pay in order to coordinate behaviors outweighs the benefits unless there is a sufficient number of collaborations. For instance, the bioluminescence luciferase produced by Vibrio fischeri would not be visible if it was produced by a single cell. By using quorum sensing, the to limit the production of luciferase to situations when cell populations are large, V. fischeri, Vibrio fischeri cells are able to avoid wasting energy on the production of unless product. Interestingly, quorum sensing has been interpreted as a bacterial communication system to coordinate behaviors at the population level. Quorum sensing has been interpreted as a bacterial communication system to coordinate behaviors at the population level. The opportunistic bacteria Pseudomonas aeruginosa also uses quorum sensing to coordinate the formation of biofilms, swarming, motility, polysaccharide production, and cell aggregation. These bacteria can grow within a host without harming it until they reach a certain concentration. Then they become aggressive, their numbers sufficient to overcome the host's immune system and form a biofilm, leading to disease within the host. Biofilm formation occurs when free floating microorganisms attach themselves to a surface. They secrete extracellular polymers that provide a they secrete extracellular polymers that provide a structural matrix and facilitate adhesion. Because biofilms protect the bacteria, they are often more resistant to traditional antimicrobial treatments, making them a serious health risk. For example, there are more than 1 million cases of catheter associated urinary tract infections reported each year, many of which can be attributed to biofilm associated bacteria. Formation of a biofilm on a substratum are rather complex but can generalized in four basic steps: deposition of the conditioning film, microbial attachment to the conditioning film, growth and bacterial colonization, and finally biofilm formation. A microbial mat is a multi-layered sheet of microorganisms, mainly bacteria and archaea. Microbial mats grow at interfaces between different types of material, mostly on submerged or moist surfaces, but a few survive in deserts. They colonize environments ranging in temperature from 40 degrees centigrade to 120 degrees centigrade. A few are found as endosymbionts of animals. The best known physical forms are flat mates and stubby pillars called stromatolites. But there are also spherical forms. Stromatolites provide some of the most ancient records of life on Earth and are layered accretionary gains by biofilms of microorganisms, especially trapping, binding, cementation of sedimentary grains by biofilms of microorganisms, especially cyanobacteria, commonly known as blue-green algae. A microbial, a microbial mat consists of several layers, each of which is dominated by specific types of microorganisms, mainly bacteria. Although the composition of individual mats varies depending on the environment, as a general rule, the byproducts of each group of microorganisms serve as food for the other groups. In fact, each mat forms its own food chain, with one or a few groups at the top of the food chain as their byproducts are not consumed by other groups. Different types of microorganisms dominate different layers based on their comparative advantage for living in that layer. In other words, they live in positions where they can outperform other groups rather than where they would absolutely be most comfortable. Ecological relationship between different groups are a combination of competition and cooperation, since the metabolic capabilities of bacteria generally depend on their progeny. The different layers of a mat are divided in both by their different metabolic contributions to the community and by their phylogenetic relationships. Microbial mats use all of the types of metabolism and feeding strategy and have evolved on Earth unoxygenic and oxygenic photosynthesis, anaerobic and aerobic chemotrophy, organic and inorganic respiration and fermentation, autotrophy and heterotrophy. There is a growing interest in the application of microbial mat and phototrophic biofilms, for instance, in wastewater treatment, in constructed wetlands, bioremediation, aquaculture, biohydrogen production. Interestingly, choanoflagellates, which are the free-living unicellular eukaryotes, so colonial behavior and considered to be the closest living relatives of the animals. Now let's know about multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms consist of differentiated cells that perform special tasks. The entire organism requires all the different types of cells to be present, and the individual cells cannot survive without being in the organism. The Ediacara biota are the earliest widely accepted evidence of multicellular animals. The difference between a multicellular organism and a colonial organism is that individual organisms form a colony can, if separated, survive on their own, while cells from a multicellular life form cannot. The evolution of multicellularity life forms is proposed to be arisen as a result of cooperation behavior among single cells. This idea, often referred to as the colonial theory, was first proposed by Haeckel in 1874 and claims that the symbiosis of many organisms of the same species lead to a multicellular organism. In a few instances, multicellularity occurs by cells separating then separating and then rejoining. Whereas for the majority of multicellular types, multicellularity occurs as a consequence of cells falling to separate following division. The mechanism of this latter colony formation can be as simple as incomplete cytokinesis, though multicellularity is also typically considered to involve cellularity differentiation. The advantage of colonial theory hypothesis is that it has been seen to occur independently numerous times. During food shortage, Dictyostelium discoideum cells group together in a colony that moves as one to a new location. Some of these cells then slightly differentiate from each other. However, it can often be hard to separate colonial protists from true multicellular organisms as the two concepts are not distinct. This problem plagues most hypotheses of how multicellularization could have occurred. However, most scientists accept that multicellular organisms from all phyla evolved the colonial mechanism. Multicellular organisms arise in various different ways, for example, by cell division or by aggregation of many single cells. Colonial organisms are the result of many identical individuals joining together to form a colony. However, it can often be hard to separate colonial protists from true multicellular organisms because the two concepts are not distinct. Colonial protists have been dubbed plurial, pluricellular rather than multicellular. The evolution of multicellularity could have occurred in three ways, of which the latter, the colonial theory, is the most credited by the scientific community. Let's know about the symbiotic theory. The symbiotic theory. This theory suggests that the first multicellular organisms occurred from symbiosis of different species of single cell organisms, each each with different roles. Each respective organism would become a separate lineage of differentiated cells within the newly created species. This kind of severely codependent symbiosis can be seen frequently, such as in the relationship between clownfish and riteri sea anemones. In these cases, it is extremely doubtful whether either species would survive very long if the other became extinct. However, the problem with this theory is that it is still not known how each organism's DNA could be incorporated into one single genome to constitute them as a single species. Although such symbiosis is theory to have occurred, it has happened only extremely rarely, and even then, the genomes of the endosymbionts have retained an element of distinction, separately replicating their DNA during mitosis of the host species. For instance, the two or three symbiotic organisms forming the composite lichen, although dependent on each other for survival, have to separately reproduce and then reform to create one individual organism once more. Next theory is the cellularization theory or syncytial theory. Syncytial theory. This theory states that a single unicellular organism with multiple nuclei could have developed internal membrane partitioned around each of its nuclei. Many protists, such as the ciliates or slime molds can have several nuclei, leading support to this hypothesis. However, the simple presence of multiple nuclei is not enough to support the theory. Multiple nuclei of ciliates are dissimilar and have clear differentiated functions. The macronucleus, the macronucleus serves the organism's needs, whereas the micronucleus is used for sexual production with exchange of genetic material. Slime molds, syncytia, form from individual amoeboid cells like syncytial tissues of some multicellular organisms, not the other way round. To be deemed valid, this theory needs a demonstrable example and mechanism of generation of a multicellular organism from a pre-existing syncytium. Now, the colonial theory. The third explanation of multicellularization is that the colonial theory proposed by Haeckel in 1874. This theory claims that the symbiosis of many organisms of the same species lead to a multicellular organism. It is presumed land evolved. Multicellularity occurs by cells separating and then rejoining, whereas for the majority of multicellular types, multicellularity occurs as a consequence of cells failing to separate following division. The mechanism of this latter colony formation can be as simple as incomplete cytokinesis, though multicellularity is also typically considered to involve cellular differentiation. Let's know about the advantage. The advantage of the colonial theory hypothesis is that it has been seen to occur independently in 16 different Protostia phyla. For instance, during food shortage, the amoeba Dictyostelium groups together in a colony that moves as one to a new location. Some of these amoeba then slightly differentiate from each other. Other examples of colonial organization in Protista are Volvocaceae, such as Eudorina and Volvox, the latter of which consists of 500 to 50,000 cells. Depending on the species, only a fraction of which reproduce. For example, in one species, 25 to 35 cells reproduce, 8 asexually and around 15 to 25 sexually. However, it can often be hard to separate colonial protists from true multicellular organisms, as the two concepts are not distinct. Colonial protists have been dubbed pluricellular rather than multicellular. Labels of structural organization in the human body can be compared to the written language tool. Let's know about the tools which we commonly used in daily life. First is chemical label and letters. Atoms and molecules can be compared to letters of the alphabet. Second is the cellular labels and words. Cells, the smallest living units in the human body, can be compared with words, the smallest element of language. Third is the tissue label and sentences. Cells join together to form tissue, similar to the way words are put together to form sentences. Next point is the organ label and paragraphs. Tissues join together to form organs similar to the way sentences are put together to form paragraphs. Next point is the system labels and chapters. That is, organs join together to form systems similar to the way paragraphs are put together to form chapters. Next is the organism label and books. Systems join together to form an organism similar to the way chapters are put together to form a book. Now let's know about tissues. Cells group together in the body to form tissues, a collection of similar cells that group together to perform a specialized function. There are four primary tissue types in the human body: epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscle tissue, and nerve tissue. Let's know about first tissue is epithelial tissue. The cells of epithelial tissue pack tightly together and form continuous sheets that serve as lining in different parts of the body. Epithelial tissue serve as membranes lining organs and helping to keep the body's organs separate, in place, and protected. Some examples of epithelial tissues are the outer layer of skin, the inside of the mouth and stomach, and tissue surrounding the body organ. Let's know about connective tissue. There are many types of connective tissue in the body. Generally speaking, tissue speaking connective tissue are support and structure to the body. Most types of connective tissue contain fibrous strands of the protein collagen that add strength to connective tissue. Some examples of connective tissue include the inner layer of skin, tendons, ligaments, cartilage, bone, and fat tissue. In, in addition to this more recognizable form of connective tissue, blood is also considered a form of connective tissue. Muscle tissue. Let's know about muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is a specialized tissue that can contract. Muscle tissue contains the specialized proteins actin and myosin that slide past one another and allow movement. Example of muscle tissue are contained in the muscle throughout your body. Let's know about nerve tissue. Nerve tissue contains two types of cells, neurons and glial cells. Nerve tissue has the ability to generate and conduct electrical signals in the body. These electrical messengers are managed by nerve tissue in the brain and transmitted down the spinal cord to the body. Let's know about organs. Organs are the next level of organization of the body. An organ is a structure and that contains at least two different types of tissue functioning together for a common purpose. There are many different organs in the body like liver, kidney, heart. Even your skin is an organ. In fact, the skin is the largest organ in the human body and provides us with an excellent example for explanation purposes. The skin is composed of three layers: the epidermis, dermis, and subcutaneous layer. The epidermis is the outermost layer of the skin. It consists of epithelial tissue in which the cells are tightly packed together, providing a barrier between the inside of the body and the outside world. Below the epidermis lies a layer of connective tissue called the dermis. In addition to provide support for the skin, the dermis has many other purposes. The dermis contains blood vessels that nourish skin cells. It contains nerve tissue that provides filling in the skin, and it contains muscle tissue that is responsible for giving you goosebumps when you get cold or frightened. The subcutaneous layer is beneath the dermis and consists mainly of a type of connective tissue called adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is more commonly known as fat, and it helps cushion the skin and provide protection from cold temperature. Now let's know about organ systems. Organ systems are composed of two or more different organs that work together to provide a common function. There are 10 major organ systems in the human body. They are skeletal system. Let's know about skeletal system. Its major role to is of skeletal is to provide support for the body, to protect delicate internal organs, and to provide attachment sites for the organs. Major organs are bones, cartilage, tendons, ligaments. Muscular system. Its major role, major role is to provide movement. Okay, muscles work in pairs to move uh, limbs and provide the organism with mobility. Muscles also control the movement of materials through some organs such as the stomach and intestine and heart and circular system. Major organs, skeletal muscles and smooth muscles throughout the body. Let's know about circular system. Major role of circular system is to transport nutrients, gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, and through the body. Waste through the body. Major organs. Major organ is heart blood cells and blood. Okay. Now come to nervous system. Its major role is to relay electrical signal throughout the body. The nervous system directs behavior and movement, and along with the endocrine system controls physiological processes such as digestion, circulation. Major organs: brain, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves. Now let's know about respiratory system. Major role. The main role of the respiratory system is to provide gas exchange between the blood and the environment. Primarily, oxygen is absorbed from the atmosphere into the blood, into the body, and the carbon dioxide is expelled from the body. Major organs is nose, trachea, and lungs. Digestive system is digestive system. Then system is digestive system. Its major role is to break down and absorb nutrients that are necessary for growth maintenance. Major organ is mouth, esophagus, stomach, small and large intestine. Now come to excretory system. Its main major role is to filter out cellular waste, toxins, and excess water or nutrients from the circulatory system. Its major organs are kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra. Endocrine system. Its major role is to relay chemical messages through the body in conjunction with the nervous system. These chemical messages help control physiological processes such as nutrient absorption, growth, etc. Again, endocrine system is to endocrine system major role is to relay chemical messages throughout the body in conjunction with the nervous system. These chemical messages help control physiological processes such as nutrient absorption, growth. Its major organs are hypothalamus, pituitary, thyroid, pancreas, and adrenal glands. Now come to reproductive system. Here its major role is to manufacture cells that allow reproduction in the male sperm are created into inseminate egg cells produced in the female. Its major organs are females ovaries, oviducts, uterus, vagina and mammary glands, male testes, seminal vesicles and penis. Now come to lymphatic or immune system. Its major role is to destroy and remove invading microbes and viruses from the body. The lymphatic system also removes fat and excess fluids from the body, from the blood. Not body, this is from blood. Its major organs are lymph nodes, vessels, white blood cells, T and B cells. Now, completed. Any questions regarding this? You can ask me in the comment box. I'll clear all the questions, all the fundamentals. In this video, you see all the questions regarding our body organs. So, hope you can understand. Your concept will be clear. Thank you.